Good morning, everybody. I know.
Such a dramatic opening for
I know.
the Sunday afternoon episode of BHPH Nation TV. Welcome. We're doing a Sunday afternoon because
it was a holiday Saturday,
and we missed Friday morning for various reasons. So this is sort of replacing Friday's podcast, and so we're happy to have you here on an unusual Sunday afternoon. It was quick recap of the holiday weekend. You want to give any updates?
We did a lot of projects
around the house.
We
lots
got out
for some
work and
we got out for the local fireworks.
And it was really wonderful.
It was nice.
You know, I've seen fireworks all over the place, and I really quite enjoyed it. And my favorite part was at the very end. They did like a whole bunch of just those white ones that are all sparkly. So the whole sky was just white and sparkly. And I was like, I caught my breath because it was so pretty.
Yeah.
I'd never seen a fireworks display end
without
really, color, but just this like sparkle.
It was nice.
It was really pretty.
Good. Yeah. And the whole city was, we had wonderful weather here for the weekend.
Gosh,
and it was
so
really
perfect.
Great.
Yep. Yeah.
So anyway, welcome to a Sunday afternoon. We just wanted to talk about data. You know, data is not a new conversation for us.
But real quick, did we say, I hope everybody had a great 4th of July?
Oh yeah, of course.
Because it was, at 250 years is
absolutely
not a small deal.
Yeah.
So, we got to see the fireworks for that. So before we get into it, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but happy 4th of July belated to everybody out there. Now, go.
Hope you folks aren't having to nurse a sunburn today from the time at the lake or whatever, right?
Yeah.
All good. It was quite a celebration everywhere. So, I think this data conversation is, it's not a new thing. I think what's new is kind of the way that it's kind of intersecting with our world and some of the people that we're working with and some of the dealers that we're working with in our V8 community. And so it just kind of comes back to the forefront in terms of this challenge that is an opportunity, that is buy here, pay here data. And we have a distinguished listener today. I have somebody I sent the link to that is tuned in.
Not just me. I'm listening and participating, but yes.
So it's somebody that we think will be part of a solution. We're working with them to, as an analyst and data person. So we think they can be part of a solution. This is, there's some stories that we need to tell that'll kind of help illustrate why this even continues to be a thing.
And I just realized, I wrote a whole bunch about this yesterday.
Yeah.
And I left all of my sheets of paper of everything that I wrote in the other room.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's all right. You know the story. You know the whole
I do. But there were a couple of quotes from our conversation that I wrote down that were really quite impactful. If I find them or remember them, I will share them in the comments.
That sounds good. I think, and I also did some work on that even again this morning. We're obviously working a lot with Claude and AI lately and the work that we do.
So one of the things I do remember, very much so from that is that this idea that it's going to matter tomorrow is which tomorrow everyone is in the future. I'm going to all of that. It matters right now too. And so it's kind of one of those things that it can help you in the future, but it can just, for capital, for all the things that we're going to talk about too. But it really, it matters this moment. And it's something, it's one of those things that, we talk about short-term fixes or long-term fixes. And, the Native Americans have this thing where it's like, you're looking at a solution that is like, it will still serve 10 years out
or generations
or
out.
generations
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, this topic that we're talking about today is something that it has woven in to so many different conversations that we've had over the years, one's podcasts, special events, the one we did about Blue Sky.
Yeah. Live stream.
The live stream, which you can find on the Institute. But it really was an important thing that people said, if we could do this, which is part of the, making it matter, if we could do this, then it would help us be able to accomplish these bigger goals that are.
Yeah. Let me just say, there are solutions taking shape. And so I think, we would urge people to kind of stay plugged in, because we're going to ask people to come add their voice to, the work that is being done here. I think, we've talked about that AI is creating answers that really weren't there before. And then between the partners we're added, and I'm very much aimed at the long game here, right? I mean, we want to solve this thing in a way that I don't like Band-Aids. So I want to solve it.
We're talking about solve this thing. Let's define the thing.
Yeah. So that's best done with stories. Like, I've got a dealer now that's an example, somebody who is a new member to V8. They just enrolled last month. So we're getting their data and trying to get them in meetings in July. And in working through their data, it's clear that the dealer doesn't really know which report. They're on a software they've been on for 6 months to a year, maybe. They don't know exactly which reports to run. They granted us access. We got in and pulled some reports. The reports don't tie together. So what I mean is, when I ran, like, for example, March, April, May, the months individually, they didn't.
Endings are different.
They didn't tie together month over month. And so that's like, where do we start? In terms of
that in itself is basic 101 budget and accounting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like balancing your checkbook. Yeah. You know where it ended, and it's starting on that same place.
Yeah.
And so, obviously it did end on last day of the month with the exact same amounts of money and all of that as it did when you opened up your doors the next month. But it's because of how you're structuring your data, how you're entering things. If you're going back and you're changing stuff, that's probably one of the bigger ones.
That's when we see, you see dealers in some systems, there's a difference between the date that we contract and the date that you post a deal. And we're seeing some dealers that have a discrepancy. I looked at one dealer's data recently where they had, I think I looked at like 75 to 100 deals. And there might have been one that was that was posted the same day it was contracted. So anytime you've got that kind of a lag, right? Because we don't know, when we're running a sales report, we can run in some software, I should say. In some software, you can choose to run a sales report. For example, do you want sales that were posted or sales that are unposted, or do you want to see all of them, whatever? So that's an example of something can happen. With this particular dealer, we don't know. We're not inside their operation and know what they're doing about what they're contracting. And so one of the things you alluded to that I think is, when we reverse a deal, which this is something that, as a former dealer myself and somebody who's worked with data for many years, I think if I were a dealer, if I were advising a dealer who's setting up, and the software could allow me to turn this on or off, like, can I reverse a deal from a prior calendar month? The answer would be no.
And it's just because it makes things messy.
It's such a mess. And
it
so
makes things so messy.
It makes it difficult to reconcile. When we've already closed, in this case, we're having this conversation early July. If we've already run our closing inventory and receivables report and kind of asset, snapshots for balance sheet, then if something happens transaction in July that changes our June after we've already run, our close of the month, then you're just chasing our tail and we don't ever get clean.
Well, and you mentioned too before, like you're booking a deal and posting. Is it possible to do it on the same day?
Yeah. So there would be operational internal reasons for not doing so.
Okay. But it's like, it's possible. So it just, the idea I couldn't because of X, Y, or Z.
it's really internal decisions.
It's just for whatever the reasons are, but it's not about I couldn't because I just couldn't. It's just because it's just you've made a decision not to. Gotcha.
Yeah, and we've created a practice where that happens, and so it becomes a little persistent with some, but instead of a rare case where we've got some reason to hold over a deal for a few days before we or before we finalize it or post it in the system. So this is all kind of minutia that the average dealer or the average vendor might not get interested in. But I think let me kind of jump to the end and then we can work our way backwards.
Because what we just did is we gave examples of what the problem is.
Yeah.
And so it's in this whole body of, of not having things match and not there are some things like, I don't know if it's standardized or whatever, that just making sure that we're able to compare apples to apples.
Yeah. So I think when we get to the end, I can tell you that one of the ways that I think this matters, because if you look at who cares if the data is clean? Well, I would say the dealers ought to care, the dealer's management team, they're the ones trying to manage the business. They ought to be wanting to work from data that's reliable and accurate. And then after that, it starts to pass on to the CPA and lenders, and there's all these parties, out there that are interested in the data coming through from the dealer, right? So I would just say that my solution to this is to work with the DMS and the capital folks. And the reason this works for me, I think is going to ultimately work for dealers, is that when we can get to the place where dealers have, let's call it white hat verified data. Okay, so they've got data that has been swept, it's been validated, it's been verified, it's been mapped toward accounting chart of accounts. It's got all these elements.
Yeah.
Now, when you have that white hat certified data, you'll see the day that lenders are able to offer those dealers better terms on financing.
You actually had a conversation with someone who was a former banker that is a dealer that basically said, if you could solve that, you would be able to get a better deal.
Yeah. That once if it could read a little, 10 bullets or a one pager that says, here's what white hat verification means on this data pool.
Yeah.
Right. And so now, again, CPAs we're not trying to be accountants, but we're just trying to make sure that the data that comes across I call it threshold. It comes across the white hat threshold. And when it lands on the other side, it's verified at these points. Right. So they can spot check, but at least at that point, if you're a CPA, you've got a third party here who has validated the data passing across that platform, and it comes out the other side with some verification.
So, earlier we talked about the examples of what it is that we're talking about. If a dealer is doing some of those things, it would likely be a headache with the CPA. And that they would just either have to turn a blind eye.
Good enough.
I'm not going to argue the point with you. All right. So you said, well, it happens because of this. And so I'm going to take your reason and all of that. It does. And it still causes an accountant a level of friction.
Yeah. And before you get to the accountants, I think one of the things that's happening for us, and by the way, when we close the month of June, that means we're now going to have 30 months of data for a lot of our members that either started that early or built their data back to January 2024. So you're talking about 30 months of continuous data. Well, this week, I had a conversation with a dealer who's probably going to be exiting a V8 dealer group. And there's still a chance we can find a way but it's around data. And it's around, if we can't get the data to work, then it becomes a question, and it becomes a question for us as the host of the V8 platform, getting to data that is reliable. Okay. So this is why it came into question this week, is that we've got a dealer who's probably going to leave our ecosystem because we can't get on the same page about data. We've been working on it for quite some time.
Okay. Okay.
So this is important. And I want to say this part really for this distinguished listener that I'm talking about, who may be joining us in this data kind of extraction and validation process is this dealer's been, I mean, this is a pretty sizable dealer, collecting $500,000 a month, or, you know, pretty significant amount of money. I didn't look at the exact numbers, but they've got a substantial amount of portfolio and cash flow. I'm in a place where I probably can't include all those years of data in our historicals going backwards, because it just doesn't tie together. It simply is not a reliable pool of data. And so, in fairness to the other members, we have to exclude that, because, and that's unfortunate. Like for me,
is that something that can be fixed?
Well, you would need cooperation with the DMS providers probably to get there. The answer would seem to be yes. You know that every transaction in the software probably has a footprint. It's a question of what would you have to pay somebody to really go in there and do something forensic and rebuild all the stuff and tie it all back together. The software clearly is going to make some sort of a stamp of a footprint of a transaction.
Which is kind of how they weave into this whole conversation as well.
Yeah. So I think when I look at that situation, it's unfortunate. Will we be able to find a way to clean that up and keep them as a member? I hope so. I kind of expect that we will. But if we lose them, it's like, I think the big thing for me is it's just so unfortunate that all that history of that dealer working and their management team working to get their data turned in and be a member in the V8 thing. And it's not that they didn't contribute to the meetings in other ways, right? But the actual data just never got in a flow that was reliable. And so this is, and of course for us, we're over here with V8 trying to keep it affordable for dealers. And there's another thread to this thing that I think we've touched on before. People can go back and find the prior conversation that we had around this, but it really intersects with everything we're talking about. And it leads into conversation I'm going to be having this coming week. I've got meetings lined up with DMS providers and dealers for this coming week. And this will be very much a focal point of these conversations. Here's my vision for how we solve this. Okay. And I can show them enough of the mapping that they can get a better understanding for what it looks like when data passes across our threshold. Right. And this is where it becomes a thing where when you look at the software, there are folks out there working with API integrations, right? We haven't gone down that path. We chose to not
We've
write
had people
checks.
ask.
So, the different providers approach that differently. Some will charge, some will cooperate, whatever. But either way, it's like we chose not to go down the path of APIs. Now, I had a conversation with somebody who's like, well, it's 2026, and we got to get automated. And I told him, I said, you're not wrong, and automation just moves data faster.
Okay, and I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's not just about moving it faster. It's about this whole. There's like a side conversation. AI is fantastic, but when it helps you to stop thinking, it is no longer fantastic. So if you have AI doing all of the thinking for you, so as a dealer, if AI is doing that, then you're not in the numbers to know what it is that's
it doesn't have to be AI. It could simply be an API integration between the DMS and the dealer's platform. It might be pushing to accounting. It might be whatever. But here's the thing, and I learned this way back in my early days of, we had computers, and I told somebody recently, I stepped into the finance side, buy here, pay here, back when there was DOS-based systems and they moved to Windows. I mean, I'm showing my age here, right?
Yeah.
But I've been through a lot of iterations of software. So this thing is not new around, you could automate things and make it spit out numbers more quickly. But when a dealer comes to a V8 meeting and they sit in a room with 7 other dealers and they don't know their own numbers.
Yeah.
They don't know if their own numbers are right. They haven't participated in the collection of those numbers.
Well, exactly. We've a lot of dealers, it takes them less than 30 minutes so it's not like it's a lot.
not a lot.
has to
I've
happen,
had dealers say,
unless you have a mess.
yeah,
And that's when it takes extra time. Because if you're clean and you're not doing the thing, I mean, if you're able to carry over month and all of those things, it's not nearly the headache to put together your numbers.
Yeah, and I'm really just thinking about, and this is, look, I told the same person, I said, yeah, of course we're all moving, we're using AI, and we're moving toward automations and API integrations, right? That's really, I'd say it's the future. It's yesterday for a lot of industries. For us, we're a little behind the curve and by ear payer, which is common, but what you miss when you automate that and the machine spits the data across from one place to the other. You can't have dealers in a meeting saying, oh, that doesn't look right. My average recon, that doesn't look right. Like, that's the wrong time to find out that the data may not be coming through, that we've got some sort of glitch in the process that pushes data or whatever. Obviously it'll be cleaner than human. When you take out the human error part of it, we get that. But there's also value to remember, to have your dealers touch and get familiar with their own data, recognize anything that's irregular. So that's currently still our process. We'll be moving toward automated more solutions, of course, but there's value in having our members submit the data
and being involved in the process. Yeah.
And so sometimes we have human error. It's a typo, and I'll have a dealer, when the report goes out, they'll say, hey, would you look at my inventory numbers? I think I put the wrong number in the wrong place. So that's human error, can happen, right? So our work is to validate those things and make sure everything looks legit. And then, of course, we can check with the dealer to make sure everything looks right before it actually goes into the final report. But I think that the big thing here is that unless we get software providers to cooperate, then you're just having the same old tired conversations and you're really not getting anywhere. And so what I'm really saying is let's rally, let's work together to solve this thing. This is there's enough automation out there to make pretty short work of some of the things that we're talking about. So it's a question of how do we get folks to do this? And my answer will be that when people start to see what the white hat verified data looks like coming out the other side. And so let me kind of illustrate that there's more than just the software connection to, in my case, a V8 dealer group. Let's say the dealer turns on flips a switch in their software because the software has now got a push to the V8 thing. Beautiful. That's a nice thing. What it doesn't solve is the thing that dealer one on software one is a member of a group with another dealer who's, dealer three on software, X. And if those things don't correlate, they don't line up because of operational differences in the way that they conduct business, then we still haven't solved a piece of it. And this is the other part that I'm digging in on. We're already working on that and working with dealers now to make sure that we can also address these operational differences. And we only have to really do it once and update it periodically, but we now have the ability to sweep that information and make sure that it matches, that it's going to match with the way the other dealers are reporting their data and operating their business. What do I mean by that? Some dealers have service contracts on there, so it's in their note, it's in their add-ons, and other dealers don't have that. Well, you can maybe pick some of that up from APIs, and then there will be better examples of things that you don't really pick up in an API. So I think the way the description for today's podcast read is about when you instead of operating on a solid foundation, you can do all this stuff and you can move data fast, but you're still operating on sand. It's like it's not stable. And so this is why the thing about we don't have integrity of the data until we get some sort of foundational thing that we can work from. And this is the part that Way is doing. This is our solution.
Yeah. So I threw up there a minute ago and I let you finish and it came off and then I put it back up. whitehatway.com. For those that are listening, if you head there and click on the tab for V8, that it gives you a lot more information about just, what the whole program or whatever looks like.
BHPH.
And and just so you know, little bit of a plug, we are changing pricing August 1st.
Right.
And so if you want to get in even thinking about it, that now really is the time to do it before prices go up. So that all that information about that is on the website. So if you go to whitehatway.com and then click on the V8 tab, there's all that information. And you know, if you want to get more information, the links lead to an email to Jim. So
and I would just say, to kind of wrap it up, is like I'm doubling down on data integrity.
It's you know, it has been like your thing since I met you. And it's data integrity. It's data integrity.
And it still matters.
And it's
going to continue to matter until we fix it. Right. It's
I mean, yes. And I'm surprised that you don't have an ulcer or something from, because it is something that you have felt a level of frustration around since we met.
And I keep showing up for work. So,
well, I mean, and with like that, it's like, well, we happen to think it matters. And, you know, let us know if you think it matters. Because sometimes it just makes no sense to fight a fight that no one thinks is worth fighting. Except for the person fighting.
Here's when it'll start to matter to some folks, is when the lender asks, is this data white hat certified? Or is it white hat validated, verified? That's going to be the thing that's going to start to tip the thing and make people realize this stuff matters. Like it's going to make a difference with the lenders and access to capital, which is pretty scarce at the moment. There's not a lot of capital out there. So I think we want to make sure that we've got
and anything you can do to help your interest rate on capital. And that's, like I said, you know, talking to a former banker, it's like, if you could do that, string data together and have it all
validate.
That is something that has value.
And we can do that, and our V8 members are contributing in that way. They're working with us, but I would say anybody who joins a V8 group with us going forward can expect that we're gonna ask you to work with us to make sure the data has integrity. And
absolutely.
That means working with the DMS provider sometimes.
whitehatway.com. Check on the V8. You can also, if you want to, just reach out to Jim directly, and it's jim@whitehatway.com. And you know, he can answer whatever questions you have and send you some information, whatever.
There are solutions, friends. We just we're going to need folks to add their voices to this conversation, and we're going to step forward in solving some of it. I don't know what you're thinking.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining our special broadcast from Buy Here, Pay Your Nation TV. We will be launching a brand new look, feel, style, and integrate platform where all of the things in Buy Here, Pay Your Nation TV and everything in Buy Here, Pay Here Institute, which is the industry's premier virtual video education platform. So I'm literally looking forward to, we will be doing that launch. Everyone's going to be seeing it about the 1st of September. So be watching for that and be looking for some of the marketing on that. So again, thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate you including us on this holiday weekend, and we will see you on the other side.